The first time I saw him, I thought he was a shadow, a flicker of movement just beyond the glass. October air sharp with the scent of fallen leaves, the kind of cold that clings to your skin. My apartment was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears after a loss. I'd moved here 3 weeks ago. A fresh start, they called it. Funny how fresh starts always feel like running away. The boxes were still half unpacked. The walls bare, except for one photo, my mom, smiling in her garden, 2 months before the cancer took her. Then there he was. A cat, black as spilled ink, with eyes that caught the streetlight like 2 copper coins. He didn't meow, didn't scratch, just sat there on the fire escape outside my window, staring in like he was waiting for an invitation. I held my breath. He blinked first, slow, deliberate, a cat's version of a handshake. I opened the window a crack. Cold air rushed in, along with the distant sound of traffic, a siren wailing somewhere. He didn't bolt, just tilted his head as if to say, "Took you long enough." "Hey," I whispered. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. But his tail twitched, once, twice, then stilled. I reached out, hesitant. He leaned in, just slightly, letting my fingers graze the space between his ears. His fur was softer than I expected. Warmer. Alive in a way nothing had felt in months. And then, like he'd only stopped by to check on me, he stood, stretched, and vanished into the night. He came back the next night. And the next. Always at the same time, 9:37 p.m., like he had an internal clock synced to my loneliness. I started leaving the window open a little wider, a saucer of milk on the sill, which he ignored, then tuna, which he didn't. He'd eat delicately, licking his lips after every bite, then settle onto the ledge, one paw tucked under his chest. Watching. Always watching. I talked to him. Not in the cutesy voice people use for pets, but in my real voice, the one I hadn't used since Mom died. The one that sounded tired and sad and so damn human. Today was hard, I'd say, and he'd blink like he understood. Sometimes, I'd catch him staring at Mom's photo. Not at me, at her. Like he recognized something in her smile. One night, I woke to a sound, a soft thump. He was inside for the first time, perched on my dresser, nose pressed to the frame of Mom's picture. His tail flicked once. Then he turned those gold-green eyes on me, and for a heartbeat, I swore he knew. Knew about the empty chair at Thanksgiving. The unopened voicemails. The way grief isn't a wave, but a tide, always there, pulling you under when you least expect it. He jumped down, padded across the bed, and curled against my side. His purr was low, steady, a vibration against my ribs. I didn't cry, but for the first time in months, I could have. Then, one night, he didn't come. The window stayed empty. No shadow. No watchful eyes. Just the moon, pale and distant, and the ache of something missing. I told myself he'd be back. Cats are like that, independent, unpredictable. But by midnight, my chest was tight. By 2 a.m., I was pacing. At 3:17, exhausted, I finally slept. And dreamed. A field. Tall grass swaying in a wind I couldn't feel. And there at the edge of the trees, not sick, not fading, and beside her, the cat, sitting tall, like he'd been waiting for me. Mom smiled, held out her hand, and the kid winked. I didn't tell anyone about the dream. What would I even say? Hey, I think my dead mom and a stray cat are hanging out in my subconscious? People would nod politely, then slowly back away. Grief does strange things to people, But this felt different. The cat came back the next night. Not on the fire escape. Inside. I woke to the weight of him on the bed, his paws kneading the blanket near my feet. No sound. No warning. Just that. Like he'd always belonged. Moonlight cut through the curtains, painting stripes across his fur. He wasn't just black. Up close, I could see hints of chocolate, rust, even a single white hair near his left ear. Imperfect. I held still. He walked up the length of the bed, tail flicking, until he was level with my face. Then he stopped. His eyes were brighter indoors, less like coins and more like liquid amber. Slowly, so slowly, he stretched out a paw. One claw caught the fabric of my shirt. Not scratching. Just holding on. I exhaled. He blinked. And just like that, something inside me, something knotted up and raw, loosened. We fell into a routine. Every night, he'd slip in through the window. Every morning, he'd vanish before dawn. I never saw him come or go. It was like he existed only in the in-between hours, when the world was quiet enough to hear a heartbeat. I started buying cat food. The fancy kind, with salmon and real shreds. He sniffed it, gave me a look that said, "You're trying too hard," and ate it anyway. I named him Sal, short for Shadow, but also because it made him sound like an old jazz musician. He ignored it, of course. Cats don't care about human words unless they're followed by the can opener. But he did care about the photo. Mom's picture was the only thing I'd hung up. The rest of the apartment was still boxes, half-assembled furniture, that one chair I kept meaning to return. But her smile was front and center. Sal would sit beneath it for hours, tail wrapped around his paws, gaze fixed. Not sad. Not longing. Just present. Like he was keeping watch. One rainy Tuesday I broke. "You knew her, didn't you?" The words hung in the air, ridiculous and impossible. Sal turned his head. Just slightly. Enough to let me know he'd heard. Then he stood, stretched, and jumped onto the couch beside me. Close enough that his fur brushed my arm. I reached for him, and he headbutted my hand. Not an accident. A demand. Pet me. I laughed. Actually laughed. It startled us both. His purr kicked in like an engine, rough and rumbling. I scratched under his chin, and he melted into it, eyes slitting shut. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel alone. The dreams got clearer. Not every night. Just sometimes. But when they came, they were vivid. Mom in her garden, dirt under her nails, sun hat crooked. Sal weaving between her legs, tail high. Her voice, faint but familiar. "You found him. Good." I'd wake with tears drying on my cheeks, and Sal would be there, pressed against my side like a living heating pad. I started talking to him more. Not just idle chatter, real things. I miss her voice. Blink. I should have called more. A paw on my wrist. Not clawed. Do you think she's... He headbutted me before I could finish. Harder this time. I stopped. Then came the collar. I found it in a thrift store, shoved between cracked teacups and a set of salt shakers shaped like penguins. Leather, worn soft, with a tiny brass bell. It felt like a dare. Sal had no tags, no scars, no sign he'd ever belonged to anyone. But when I held the collar out to him that night, he sniffed it once, twice, then sat perfectly still, like he was waiting. My hands shook as I buckled it. Too tight? Too loose? He didn't fuss. Just tilted his head when the bell jingled, as if amused by the sound. I expected him to rip it off, scratch it, vanish for a week to teach me a lesson. Instead, he climbed into my lap, curled up, and fell asleep. The bell didn't make a sound. The scratching started on a Thursday, 2:18 a.m., according to the glowing numbers on my microwave. A sound like fingernails on chalkboard, steady and deliberate. Not random, not frantic, purposeful. I found Sal in the hallway, pawing at the baseboard near the bathroom. Not the usual cat scratch posturing. No arched back, no puff tail. Just focused repetition, claws working at the same spot like he was trying to dig through to the other side. Sal? He ignored me. I crouched down, touched his back. His fur was stiff, vibrating with tension. The second my fingers made contact, he froze. Turned his head. His pupils were huge, black, swallowing the copper. Then, slowly, he blinked and went right back to scratching. I pulled up the carpet 2 days later. Not because I believed in cat telepathy. Not because I thought there'd actually be something there. But because grief makes you do stupid things. And because, for the first time since Mom died, I felt curious about something. The carpet was cheap, the padding underneath brittle with age. It came up in musty chunks, revealing floorboards warped by decades of spilled drinks and New York winters. Sal watched from the doorway, tail twitching. Then I saw it. A knot in the wood, darker than the rest. Not natural. A cut. A perfect little square, barely bigger than a postage stamp. My throat went dry. Sal meowed, a sound I'd never heard from him before. Urgent. I pried it up with a butter knife. Inside was a key. Tarnished. Tied to a faded red string. Sal sniffed it, then sat back, satisfied. Like he'd known all along. I turned it over in my palm. It was warm. Not from being hidden. Not from Sal's nose. Just warm. Like it had been sitting in someone's pocket. Where did you come from? I whispered. Sal headbutted my knee. Keep going. The dreams changed that night. No garden. Just a hallway, long and narrow, like the one in my apartment but stretched too far, doors looming on either side. Sal walked ahead of me, tail high. The bell on his collar didn't jingle. At the last door, he stopped. Look back. Open it. I reached for the knob and woke up gasping, the key clenched in my fist so tight it left marks. Sal was gone. But on the pillow next to me, a single black fur. And the faint smell of Mom's perfume. The super knew nothing. Floors original to the building, he grunted, barely looking up from his crossword. 1920s. Lots of weird shit under there. I pressed. Did anyone else live in my unit before me? Someone who might have. Lady, I've been here 6 years. You want ancient history, try the archives. The archives. A lead. A thread. I pulled it. The library smelled like dust and old paper. Microfilm word, spooling through decades of city records. Verse. Des. 1953. Apartment 4B. Tenant, Margaret Calloway. My breath hitched. Calloway. Mom's maiden name. A coincidence. Had to be. But then, next of kin, Evelyn Calloway, daughter. Evelyn. My grandmother. Who died when Mom was 9. Who'd lived here. Sal wasn't on the fire escape that night. He was on Mom's photo. Paws on the frame, nose pressed to the glass like he could smell her through it. His collar was crooked, the bell silent. I reached to straighten it and froze. It fit perfectly around his neck. Not a key. A tag. The key burned against my palm. Not literally, but close enough. I sat on the floor, legs folded under me, staring at the tiny brass tag now looped around Sal's collar. The engraving was worn nearly smooth, just 3 faint letters visible under my trembling fingertips. Evelyn Calloway Margaret. My grandmother. My mother. And me. Sal watched me, unblinking. The air smelled like rain and old books, that particular dampness that seeps into New York apartments and never quite leaves. Somewhere downstairs, a faucet dripped. A steady, rhythmic sound, like a clock counting down. I took a breath. And broke. The box was in the basement. Not the nice part of the basement with the laundry machines and the super's toolkit. The other part, behind the rusted boiler, where the light bulb had burned out sometime during the Reagan administration. I'd nearly given up when Sal darted ahead, tail flicking like a metronome. He stopped at a stack of moldering cardboard boxes, nudged one with his nose, then looked back at me. The box was smaller than I expected. Just a shoebox, really, the kind that might have held a pair of sensible heels in 1953. The lid was sealed with brittle yellow tape, the edges furry with dust. I lifted it. Sal sneezed. We opened it on the kitchen floor. Sal sat beside me, so close his fur brushed my thigh. His ears twitched at every sound, the creak of the box, the rasp of tape pulling free, my shaky exhale as the lid came off. Inside, a postcard from Coney Island. The ink faded to ghosts of blue and red. A dried sprig of lavender, crumbling at the touch. A black and white photo of a little girl on a stoop, squinting in the sun, a black cat curled at her feet. And a letter, addressed to Maggie, my mother's childhood nickname. The handwriting was familiar. The same looping us, the same stubborn slant I'd seen on every birthday card, every grocery list, every I love you left on the fridge. Grandma's handwriting. But Mom had told me Grandma died suddenly. No warning. No goodbyes. So why did this letter exist? Sal put his paw on my knee as I read. My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, it means 2 things. You're old enough to reach the hiding spot, and I'm gone. I'm sorry, baby. I wanted so badly to stay. Look after your father. And look after Max. He'll look after you too. Cats always know. My vision blurred. The cat in the photo. But green-eyed. Just like Sal. The letter continued. When you miss me, listen for the bell. I'll be there. Not the way you want. But the way I can. Love forever. A sound escaped me, something between a sob and a laugh. Sal headbutted my arm, insistent, his bell jingling softly. But when I looked down, the collar was gone. The dream came hard that night. Not a field. Not a hallway. My apartment, but not. The walls were papered in faded roses, the floorboards bare and scarred. A woman sat at the kitchen table, her back to me, dark hair threaded with silver. So, Tomax rubbed against her legs, purring. She turned. Not Grandma. Mom. Older. Weathered. But undeniably me. She smiled. Held out her hand. And in her palm, the key. I woke with salt on my lips and sunlight in my eyes. Sal was stretched across my chest, his face inches from mine. His breath smelled like tuna and summer grass. For the first time, I noticed the scar. A thin white line across his nose, nearly hidden in his fur. The same scar from the photo of Max. The same scar Mom had told me about, the one her childhood cat had gotten in a fight with a raccoon. Sal, I whispered. He blinked. Slow. Deliberate. And in that moment, I knew. Not reincarnation. Not a ghost. Something simpler. Something truer. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. Morning light revealed the strangest thing. The key was gone. Not misplaced. not dropped between couch cushions. Gone, as if it had never existed. Only the faint red mark on my palm proved I hadn't imagined it. Sal sat on the windowsill, washing his paw with deliberate strokes, the sun turning his fur to liquid shadow. I touched the scar on his nose. He allowed it for exactly 3 seconds before biting me. Not hard, just enough to say boundaries exist, human. I laughed. Actually laughed, the sound startling us both. Something had shifted. Not in the world. In me. I called my father for the first time in 11 months. The phone rang 4 times. I almost hung up. Hello. His voice was groggy. It was 7 a.m. in Arizona. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Sal headbutted the phone. Dad, I said. Tell me about Max. The pause. A sharp inhale. Then, softer than I'd ever heard him, how did you? Please. He told me. How Grandma had found Max as a kitten, half drowned in a gutter. How he'd slept on Mom's bed every night until the day Grandma died. How, 2 weeks after the funeral, he'd vanished, only to return exactly once, the night before Mom moved away. He sat on her suitcase, Dad said, like he was saying goodbye. Sal purred against my ear, loud enough for Dad to hear. Jesus, Dad whispered. Is that? I don't know, I said. And for once, that was okay. The apartment felt different now. Lighter. The boxes got unpacked, not all at once, but steadily, like tides receding. Mom's photo stayed on the wall, but I added others, Dad grinning at the Grand Canyon. Me at 6, missing front teeth, clutching a soccer trophy. Grandma young and vibrant, Max a shadow at her feet. Sal approved. He rubbed against each frame, scent marking them with his cheeks. His habits changed too. He stopped scratching at the hallway. Started sleeping on my pillow instead of at the foot of the bed. And every night at 9:37 p.m., without fail, he'd press his forehead to mine and hold it there, 3 seconds of perfect, wordless connection. I began to understand. Grief isn't a thing you get over. It's a thing you carry. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, something helps you carry it. Then came the crows. 2 of them, perched on the fire escape one gray Tuesday. Not squawking. Not preening. Just watching. Sal froze mid-yawn. His tail puffed to twice its size. The larger crow cocked its head. Sal bowed. Not a cat stretch. Not a play posture. A deliberate dip of his head, ears forward, eyes unblinking. The crows stayed for exactly 60 seconds. Then they left in unison, wings beating the damp air. Sal resumed licking his paw like nothing had happened. I checked Grandma's letter again. Listened for the bell. But Sal's collar was still missing. I dreamed of a bridge that night. Not a fancy one. Just old wood over a slow-moving river. Mom stood on one side, Grandma on the other. Sal, Max, walked between them, tail high. No words were spoken. None were needed. I woke with tears drying on my cheeks and Sal kneading the blanket over my heart. His purr vibrated through my ribs. I placed my hand over his. And for the first time I wondered, had I found him? Or had he been waiting for me all along? The first snow fell quietly. Just a dusting, really, enough to make the fire escape glitter in the early light. Sal pressed his nose to the glass, leaving a fogged circle that shrank and vanished over and over. Watching him, I realized something. He'd stopped waiting by the window at night. Now, he waited in the mornings. Always at 7:13 a.m. Always staring east. The dream came again. This time, I stood in a train station, one I didn't recognize, all polished wood and echoing footsteps. Sal wove between my legs, his bell jingling though he wore no collar. A voice behind me, "You can keep him, you know." I turned. Grandma stood there, younger than in her photos, wearing the sunflower print dress Mom had buried her in. "But you have to choose," she said. "Some things can't stay forever." Sal rubbed against her ankles, then against mine. When I looked up, Grandma was gone. The station melted into my kitchen, and Sal was licking spilled coffee off the counter like nothing had happened. The crows returned at noon. 3 this time. They lined up on the railing outside, feathers fluffed against the cold. Sal didn't puff his tail, didn't hiss. He chirped, a sound I'd never heard from him, high, bird-like, almost friendly. The middle crow hopped closer, dropped something, a single black button. Then they left. The button fit perfectly in my palm. Smooth, unremarkable except for 2 tiny holes drilled through the center. Sal sniffed it, then nudged it toward me with his nose. "Yours." I turned it over. On the back, scratched into the surface, EC plus MC. Evelyn Calloway. Margaret Calloway. My grandmother. My mother. And now me. That night I dreamed of hands. Mom's hands, planting tulips. Grandma's hands, braiding my hair when I was small. My hands holding the button. And Sal's paw, black fur stark against my skin, covering them all. The truth came on a Thursday. Rain tapped Morse code against the windows. Sal sat curled in my lap, his breathing slow and steady, a living metronome. The black button rested on the coffee table, catching the lamplight just so, 2 dark eyes watching us back. I'd spent weeks researching. Church records. Obituaries. Even a faded newspaper clipping about a miracle cat who'd led firefighters to a trapped child in 1957. The dates lined up. The names fit. But none of that mattered now. Because Sal was purring. And for the first time in years, so was I. Love doesn't die. It can't. It lingers in the smell of lavender in an old book. In the warmth of a key held too tight. In the weight of a cat who chooses your lap as his home. Sal was never just a cat. He was a bridge. Between generations. Between worlds. Between the living and the loved and lost. And bridges only work if you're brave enough to cross them. Moonlight pooled on the floor like spilled milk. Sal stretched, his shadow long and liquid against the wall. Then he jumped down, not to the floor but into the light itself. For a heartbeat, he wasn't alone. Mom stood there, her gardening apron streaked with dirt. Grandma beside her, holding out her hands. Sal looked back at me. "Coming?" I shook my head. "Not yet." He blinked, slow, understanding, then stepped into their light. The room smelled like fresh-cut grass and Chanel No. 5. And then just rain. Not every night. Not on any schedule I can track. But sometimes, when the air smells like snow, I'll wake to find the blankets dented beside me. A warmth that lingers. And on the windowsill, a single black hair. And the faintest chime of a bell. We don't get to keep everything we love. But if we're quiet enough, if we listen past the hurt, we'll hear it. The purr in the darkness. The paw on our chest. The love that stays. Next to Mom's photo. Next to Grandma's letter. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, I swear I see a third shadow there. Blackford. Eyes like twin suns. Waiting. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button, because love like this deserves to be celebrated. Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt a loved one's presence in unexpected ways? Share this with someone who understands that grief isn't goodbye, It's just love with nowhere else to go. And don't forget to hit that bell icon, because tomorrow's story might be the one that saves you. The ones we lose never really leave. They just learn how to love us differently.